Quarantine Convos. Enjoy weekly discussions with people from around the world, assisting us in dealing with this normal, mentally, spiritually, and physically. We feature nutritionists, psychologists, therapists, personal trainers, home educators, legal experts, and more, bringing you all the information and inspiration you need. Check out Quarantine Convos every Thursday from 7 p.m, live on Got Kush TV. Everyone can see me. I'm hoping everyone can see me. Yes, technicals again. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Such a powerful show tonight. I'm looking forward to speaking to the sister, and it's a sort of a new space and era and season. So it's going to be a lovely show and reasoning this evening. But I do want to start with the news, and I want to bang through the news very quickly because, I know what came up in the news this week. Yes, we can't ignore it. I know lots of people have been trying to get my opinion on this, and so I'm just going to shut this thing down, I think, for me anyway, if not for everyone else, right? And I took a few notes because, I just, we're talking about Chris Rock and Will Smith here, as we do. And I heard... there was conversation after conversation, different things coming up. And I heard women talking about the importance of feeling protected. And, it's valid. Women should feel protected. However, it concerns me, the state of our relationship dynamics when we feel that, you can roll your eyes and your man pops off. Yeah, I think we have to recognize that that's more kind of honey trapping behavior, and we have to kind of like rein it in. Yeah, I think that situation was uncalled for. Yeah, I think, I was thinking about her dress. Yeah, no, she rocks a great dress. Fantastic dress, right? And I thought about where she was sitting, and I was saying to myself, well, hold on a minute, she's not even sitting close enough. So if perhaps if she was sitting a bit closer, she could just lean over and say, look, babes, I've got this. And she could easily say something like, what, when he talks about her hair, yeah, if you're stepping out into the world with, your hair or no hair, then you have to feel confident about it, right? So, I would like to think that she got to a place of confidence inside herself, body confidence inside herself, for her to say, yeah, you know what, I'm rocking my bald head. No one really knew about the alopecia, to be honest. I mean, it was the first so many people heard, but okay, and with that, in a situation like that, I was watching some other things and looking at the behind the scenes and all these kinds of things. I was really trying to unpack this thing, and there was a comedian who did a choke on a couple in there, but it was already staged. Now, I don't know if this thing was staged or not, and there's a conversation about is wasn't. Yeah, the way that, the resistance from Chris Rock and the way he leaned in and all these kinds of things else, and he really took it, and, took it. But at the same time, we want us to think about, the fact that, what she could have just done in a situation like that. She's got a mouth. Yeah, she could have just stepped up, piped up and said, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and, GIJ, like 2 and 3, like she could have just tapped her bald head and kept it moving. Yeah, she really could. Yeah, but she didn't. Yeah, and the whole situation now, has been blown up and escalated. A few years back, I think it was 2016, that there was a whole conversation about her wanting to boycott the Oscars. And it really, and I'm glad it came up because it showed me, if you look back at, if you like, Hattie Daniels, who was the first woman to receive, African American to receive an Oscar. Yeah, and that was only 82 years ago. So to me, and you know, courtesy of, I'm going to try to share my screen because I wanted to share this with you. For those who don't know who she is, she played the part of Mammy in the film Gone with the Wind, you know, a classic, right? And so for me, I thought to myself, well, oh, hold on a minute, you know, let's take this into account. If you're really, you know, rocking for, you know, and vying for, you know, equality, you know, don't forget your ancestors. Don't forget what they had to deal with. And this just says, never forget Hattie McDaniels had to accept her Oscar from a back room in a hotel where they kept the remaining Oscars. Yeah. Yeah. Courtesy of images you won't see on TV. Right. So I just want to leave it there. I just want to end it there. You know, please, I don't want to hear any more about it. I think, you know, we've done enough. Yeah. He may keep the Oscar. He may not. He may get sanctioned. He may not. Yeah. I just know that if it was one of our brothers doing that, you know, first of all, would you have done it to a different race? Number one. And if you, you know, and if you're in a situation like that, you know where you are. You do. You know where you are. Yeah. Hold your corner. You know, it was great. Denzel Washington and the brothers came to his aid. And I loved that. I saw the support and stuff like that. But you know, hold your corner. What you did is overshadowed the evening. You know, Serena and Williams and Venus Williams and their father. You overshadowed it. And to be honest, when I looked at the whole thing, when I stepped back from the whole thing, I just took it as self-sabotage. I'm not even gonna lie. I just think that, you know, that couple needs to take some time out, away from the limelight. Yeah, like Derek Jackson and his wife, take a certain time out of the limelight and just reflect and regroup and come back together stronger. But all of this, everything out of doors all the time, yeah, it was going to happen. You've sat in the front row. Let me just not go on about this front row. You sit in the front row, right where the comedians are. Like, anyway, I'll say no more. I'm done with that. Yeah. I do want to go on though to some things that are a bit more serious and a bit more concerning. Actually, I just find I've got no words for this. And I'll just keep it brief, yeah. But the short version is that men who may be going for cancer screenings may be asked now whether they're pregnant or not. Yeah, I know, right? And you know what they've done, they're looking to remove the term female. Yeah, the patriarchal system is alive and well. Remove the word female from, you know, like their medical, you know, knowledge and information. They just want to remove it. Yeah, you know, it's just wipe out. Let's just wipe out female. Yeah, that's what they're kind of doing. Yeah, on a you know, on a mental level. So yeah, I just want you to be aware of that because they want to be inclusive. Yeah, that's what's happening. I was listening to something this week, and I listen to sometimes I hear these activists speak when these things come up. I listen to what the activists say. And when you hear what the activists actually have to say, you find that half of them don't even say, most of them, majority, every time I've listened to it, well, this is not what we want. And you're denying, you know, biological sex. So, yeah, there's an agenda. Yeah. And BBC and Stonewall had an issue. So go check that out. But yeah, you know, you know, it's big business. All right, let's move on. And finally, now this is really important, and I wanted to kind of address this simply also because it's relevant to even the conversation we had last week with our sisters, Sister Delia Mohammed and Debbie Field Pillow, and we had them on last week, and I want to, before we forget, I really want us to take a look at, you know, because last week we had a little technical issues and maybe we'll have some technical issues today. But I want you to take a look at their details. I just want to flash it up for you, just so that you have that. If you didn't get the full details last week, it's Pregnancy Without Fear, and that's at Instagram. And you've got pregnancywithoutfear.com. Yeah, this is for Sister Delia Mohammed, who specializes in VBAC births and was a midwife and doula. And we also have here Debbie Field Pillow and Black British Parent at Instagram. And of course, if you know Black British Parent, it's www.blackbritishparent.co.uk. So I just want to complete that before I go into this next subject quickly. And this is about the Ockenden report. And if you haven't seen the Ockenden report, you don't know anything about it, It's really important in terms of childbirth. It's really important. It came out like yesterday. And the Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trusts have also been handed local actions for learning because Ockenden report raises 15 areas for immediate action in England maternity care. Yeah, so we're dealing with the Ockenden report, immediate and essential action to improve care and safety in maternity services across England. Areas such as safe staffing, escalation and accountability, clinical governance and robust support for families have all been included as must-dos by maternity expert Donna Ockenden in this 234-page document. This is one of the largest reports they've done. And so it's going to be huge conversation. Yeah, there's going to be a restructure perhaps, but it's also going to show up in other areas and other trusts. So yes, it highlights Shrewsbury and Telford, but we also know that it shows up elsewhere. So just stay vigilant when you're operating in these settings. Okay. All right. Complete. All right. I don't want to go on about news any longer, because I really want to introduce his sister. I just think this sister, the work that this sister is doing is phenomenal. And so I just want to give honor to that. I contacted her recently for my sons, actually. I wanted to get them into growing, and I'm homeschooling. So I said, well, it'd be great to do some work with them. And so we got talking from there. And here we are. So tonight we have our sister, Sandra SALAZAR, founder, award-winning indigenous nature-led non-profit entity, GoGrowWithLove C.I.C, known as Miss Dandelion by children. She is a community horticulturalist and farmer that loves to grow food and teaches practical food growing skills, development, land, food and seeds, sovereignty to children, families and adults. Sandra shares her traditional land skills in nurseries, schools, home education groups, allotments, community projects, and gardens. Sandra is the lead grower and project coordinator for Women Leading with the Land, a grassroots project based in North London that focuses on teaching melanin-rich women the way of the land to become soil sisters and develop skills in land cultivation, food growing, and enterprise. Yeah. So, and I also just wanted to really, when I looked at her the proverb this evening, I just thought, wow, you know what? That's really beautiful, and I'm so looking forward to this conversation. And the proverb for tonight is judge each day not by the harvest, but by the seeds you planted. So with that, I really wanted to invite our sister in. I can see her smiling. She's a smiler. And sis, your mic's on. Let me just take off your mic. Greetings. Greetings, sis. So finally I get to meet the face behind the machine or the soil.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes.
Thank you. So thank you so much for coming on this evening. I really wanted I wanted to get started because, also we're, it's a beautiful season. Yeah, we've just started the new season, spring. We're dealing with women, in, Women's History Month. So it's beautifully timed, and organic, as I love things to be. So I wanted to have a conversation with you about, where it started for you. It's quite, it's quite a rich work that you do. And and it sounds absolutely amazing. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a heavy plants person, but I'm growing into one, right? And so, I used to say things like, give me childbirth, ask me to deliver my babies on my own, but don't ask me to look after a plant, I can do that in my sleep. Don't give me a plant. A plant to me is like another child. You've got to love the thing. You've got to care for the thing. And worst of all, you've got to move it around different areas at different times, to get this and get that. So it takes some structure. And so it's not like your children, in that sense. But I get the sense of the watering and the love and the nurturing. And then I've been getting into kind of like, repotting and, little things like that. And a couple of years ago, we had a really, it was about 4 years ago, actually. And we had a really strong summer. And I was able to, I had a space where I could grow some peppers and some tomatoes. And I tell you what inspired me. My eldest son, he's 22 and he doesn't eat tomatoes, doesn't like them. Yeah. And I grew mine and he ate mine. Yeah.
Mm,
And he said, Mum, I'll only eat yours. Yeah.
yeah,
And I said, oh, I wonder what else they'd eat.
yeah, yeah.
And
That happened.
so the conversation began.
Yeah,
So
that's
tell
just
me a little bit about you. Tell me a little about how you came about this work. Were you always, plant woman that you are?
no, no. Greetings. Thank you for having me, first and foremost.
You're welcome.
Very much. Yes. My story. Actually, you were talking about sons. My story started with my son, and it's funny that you said about the tomatoes, because that's exactly the same thing that my son did. He does not eat vegetables. Oh, he hates tomatoes, but he eats the ones that he grows. So that's interesting. That he eats the food that he grows. So my story started with my son. No, I wasn't always a plant lady. My mom was, though. I grew up with my mom talking to her babies and singing to her babies and giving her babies milk. Exactly. Like she used to dab the cloth in a bowl of milk and just clean the leaves because that feeds the leaves with calcium. Watered down milk, actually, because I tried to do it when I was older. I tried to do that same concept, and then my plants, the leaves became all white. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not doing it correctly yet. But anyway, mummy was my inspiration. And so yeah, that's really how my story began. When I became a new mum, I wanted to lose the pregnancy weight. And I've just moved into a new area in North London, Tottenham, and I knew absolutely nobody because I'm from West London, from Labour Grove. Hey. We're from Harrow Road, and so Tottenham was like an ancient land, like whoa. But hey, new family, new house, new beginnings. So on my attempt to socialize and get to know the area, I just went walkies with my new prom, my new baby, and I found a nursery, a local nursery, and there was an advertisement poster that said, "Grow it, eat it, cook it." Sorry, give me 1 second. I just realized that I didn't charge my
Sure.
laptop. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
it's real life. I know. I'll end up putting my charger in soon.
I thought I did. I thought I did, but no, I just put it in the plug and I just left it on the floor. Okay,
Yeah,
here we go.
you leave it to charge because it burns out your phone actually
Okay.
this platform actually. just just a
It's
note. And yeah, that burns out the juice. Yeah, so you went to a nursery.
Yeah, so and there was a poster that was advertising plant it, grow it, eat it. And bearing in mind I'm trying to lose my this extra weight, and I thought, right, I'm gonna go and prior to that, I looked around to local farmers markets. I didn't know nothing about farmers markets. I thought, okay, well, the one supermarket that would have organic grown food in the UK is M&S. So I went to M&S, and there was none. Everything came from outside. So I looked and I looked and I looked. So when I saw this advertisement in the local nursery, I was really keen. It was like, the universe is listening to me. So I went in, and I remember meeting one of my good friends. At the moment, he wasn't there, and he told me all about this new session that was about to begin. And so I went along, and I met the person who was leading on the sessions, a really nice lady called Layla, who became my mentor. Layla Laksari. She runs an awesome organization called Living Under One Sun. She does many, 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 many things for the community. She's like a superpower, super mom of the community. And my story as a horticulturist began then. I just went on to develop myself. And to be honest with you, I fell in love with seed sowing. When I sowed that first seed in my life and it grew, it sprouted, I was like, oh my God, it sprouted. And the two, we call them first leaves, popped out, it was like, oh my gosh, it's growing. And then when it grew into a seedling, it was like, okay. And then I planted it into the floor, and it just grew, and it grew into a mass. It was a squash. My first plant, my first seed. It was a squash, a courgette, and it grew into about a 3 meter plant, because courgettes and squash families, they just go, they're runners, they're ground covers, so they will just run on the ground and they'll just spread. And from that one seed, one plant, I was able to harvest about 10 to 15 courgettes. Well, I didn't know what to do with courgettes. I was happy. I was like, yeah, I can do this. It was just, yeah, I fell in love with it, and I haven't looked back since. I went for it. That was 11 years ago. So your thing is muted, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, a little bit delay there. And so you say that, you talk about, you're sowing your first seed, and I think. And it reminds me of it's like there's a moment, isn't there? There's like a triumphant moment.
Yeah, there is a moment.
When it comes to growing. And I remember when it was the tomato, but my second moment was repotting. It was like, ooh. Yeah. And now kind of got into this kind of repotting vibe. And one of my friends kind of like, she's really on this thing. And I've been like, Jan was like, okay, you know what, girl? Just show me now. Yeah. And so, when she showed me, I was like, oh, and then I saw myself putting my other pots, my bigger pots there ready for that one. Like, oh, but how are you doing? Start looking at them, and how are you doing? And are you okay? Have these conversations with, you're not feeling it, like I will notice, like I have two plants the same and I put them in different areas and I'll have to sort of move them around and this kind of thing. And it's almost like as a person who used to dance, it's almost as a dance.
A dance movement, dance movement.
It's like a dance, it's like, okay, the weather changes, it's very, it's so feminine.
Absolutely. It's
so feminine.
People don't realize how feminine, how divinely feminine nature actually is. And like you're saying, it is. They do dance and they talk back to you subconsciously. It's just such a warm feeling. And the nearest feeling that I can describe to how I felt when I planted that seed was when I felt pregnant for my son.
I was just going to say that. I was going to say the only way, as somebody who's a doula, I would say this, but and maybe it sounds biased, but it's like when you have your child is not born yet, but you have to communicate with that child in order for it to for you to sow those seeds of love for that, you're nurturing that child before the child comes. I always talk about education beginning before the baby is born. And so it's like, what you've got, this vision when you're carrying a child of what that child could be, the baby could be as a young child, as an adult, like, especially if it's your first child as well. Like you have like, your vision's out here, right? And, it's you just like plan their future till they're 21.
Them before they even know. Nothing turns out how you plan it.
Those who know, right? For months, right? And so it's a bit like, when you have this plant, you've seen it, maybe like, let's say it's a money plant then. So you've got a money plant, you've seen really, really big ones, but your one's kind of, growing at a particular rate, and you're like, okay, what, you're feeling, look, you can see it when it's a bit sad, and it's almost like how you feel, it's like, okay, actually, what's going on, like you might be too dry in the house, like, the heating's on or something. And it's like, okay, you're not getting enough air, and it's drying you out, and it's like, okay, and it would be the same as feeling thirsty and hydrating yourself, and those kinds of things. There's a real beautiful line between the two, and as somebody who, I suppose, in my field as a doula, I know that I really want to get right in there now. I want to get right in there now. I want to deliver this tree now.
I tell you, it's the best thing. It's the best decision. It's the best thing, the best feeling. And this is why when we are in nature, we feel that, it's not just the oxygen that, purifies your lung and makes you feel happy. It's the amount of energy that you are, inside or around, or you're connected to at that precise moment, that does something to you. Whatever thoughts of challenging thoughts you have, somehow it takes all away. And plants are an extension of you. They are.
Yeah.
And they are. And like you rightly said when you first started the conversation, that you did not know how to look after a plant because they represent the same as children, but they are. We call them, like, and the sisters know at our project, which we will talk about, we call them our babies. Our babies. And that is the first thing that I do when I get to the land and I get to the site. I go out, I take my jacket off, look at my babies, do my little, oh baby, kissy, 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 all of that, and kiss the, really.
I'm going to be kissing my
I give them love, and then wear the permitting, take the shoes off, and get to the.
But I do give them like a stroke, and I'm like, what's going on? Like, come on, like, we got this. Yes, like I'm your coach.
Exactly. Have you ever seen plants? Have you ever seen plants that in the evening time their leaves kind of wrap inside, they close themselves? Yes, that's another beautiful thing, because they just let you know, hey, I'm here.
Yeah. And I remember, you see, I thought, in my family, I think it was also because plants weren't a big feature in our family. So I think, and I was kind of like wondered why, but my grandmother at the time, she was a nurse, like you have to have time for that, I get it. And she just didn't maybe have the time to do that at that time. And so I always felt like, okay, but she was always into health. So I was always kind of like feeling like there was a missing. And I'd give her a plant and it wouldn't, and I don't know what would happen in the plant, and the plant would dry up or whatever. She'd be in and out, on her shifts, and, and she didn't sort of tell us what to do with these plants, right? So we were like, okay, what, just sort of, Mother's Day or something would come up, or, Earth Days would come up or something like that. And I thought, okay, and I kind of just like stepped away from, that. And I think, and so I'm noticing where I'm cultivating, and I think, and I love my sister. This is my sister, I'm sure my sister's talking to me. And she asked me about a plant she might have given me some time ago. And if it was me, if it's the plant you gave me, Mama, it didn't survive. I'm so sorry. It did not survive. What? It did not survive.
But you know what? Talking about the spider plant very quickly, I just found out as well. Well, I didn't know this, but did you know spider plants are actually not meant to be in the house? They're meant to be outside the house on your door, because
I see. Well, I'm going to take that one. I'm going to take that one.
That was the reason.
It was in the house in the summer, maybe. But I just, for me, I'm learning. I'm also, what I'm learning about plants is, okay, I'm looking at. Before I would just be like, get a plant, and now I'm consciously getting plants. So I'm consciously like, okay, I'll look at the label. Okay, where would it fit? Where would it, what does it? Will it? Does it need too much light? Like, you can get too many plants, and you haven't even got the space for them, and then they're dying. And somebody might give me a plant, and I'm like, okay, it just won't go where it needs it's supposed to go. Yeah. And that would be like an ongoing saga with me and a plant. Like, it doesn't have that right spot. Yeah. And go on.
Yeah, I get that. That happens a lot. It happens with me as well. It's just, the plant needs to choose the spot, and sometimes you don't have the space for it. I get that as well. Yeah, definitely.
And sister says, Max says that that it's therapy, and I think it's something my mother's just got into it hard. Yeah, like really hard, right? And I'm like, we would never grow up with this. So I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And when you see like the color of her kale, proper dark green kale, I'm like, and massive. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm seeing something new here. And I just feel like, I think my children, I always let my children teach me. And and if I let my children teach me about what they want to know, Yeah. And so, they're asking about a pet, and I'm like, no, let's do plants, right? So I'm letting them understand that, they take nurturing. So engaging them in plants and looking after, not them seeing mum, just looking after plants,
Yeah.
but, having conversations about, okay, we've got to do this one and look at that and how, and how's that one going, and repotting it and seeing it. And I made a flower pot out of a coconut shell,
Oh
you
wow.
know,
Yeah,
as lovely. And and that's my thing at the moment. It's like, oh, and even when it biodegrades, it changes shape.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
so natural
Beautiful.
inside of it, and just put the little plants in there, start one in there, started a little one in there. And now it's like, okay, summer's coming, coconuts and stuff like that. Like, right, I don't have to, it doesn't have to be, ceramic. Because I
Yeah,
used to be
definitely.
thinking about, okay, it's got to look like this.
No.
And it's like, and so that was also part of it years ago, but now it's kind of like teaching my children the essence of it, the importance of, okay, caring for something, nurturing something. And it's a form of self-care.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Ecotherapy, yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean, when you got, you talked about getting into the nursery, and then it moved forward. So tell us a little bit more about how it started to kind of like expand after that.
Mm. So yeah, I guess my son began. Oh, look, the funny thing, yeah, that my son began attending the nursery, so that gave me a bit more time. And bearing, I was still in maternity leave, so I had time in my hands, a little bit of time in my hands. Even though when you have a baby, you don't have time in my hands, but actually, um, I invested in myself, and I began to volunteer um, at the community allotment where living one under one son um, had in Tottenham Hale, Tottenham, and that, yeah, and I found it's just increased my passion. It's just a beautiful site next to the marshes, and I invested in myself. That would be the time I go a couple of hours a week, um, while my son was at nursery, and just help out, and yeah, just started to grow food. And I enjoyed it. I carried on learning more. So I was really inquisitive about everything, about the soil, what type of soil it is, and then pH, started getting into soil science. And then I thought, oh my gosh, this is just too much. I love this. I love this so much. It's like,
Mm.
I come from a creative background. Before that, I got a degree in interior design and architecture, but I was in visual merchandising for Monsoon, so that was pretty much different. So soil science was something completely out of my reach. I guess I didn't never thought that I would get into soil science. From college to soil science, but yeah, it was. I found the symbiotic relationship between nature and my own personal development and humans, and then that really intrigued me. So when I started looking at soil science and all the background of soil, what plants need to grow, the right environments that have the right pH levels, the acidic, alkaline, um, the kind of medium that is best used, comparing the mediums that is best used to grow seedlings or to sow seeds. All of that kind of stuff really intrigued me. It was just a different area of learning, and
Mm.
I just thought, right, I'm not going back to merchandising. I am not going back to that. I'm sticking to this, and I just changed my career completely. And
Wow.
yeah.
So I'm glad you went on to speak a little bit about soil science, because now couple of years ago, I had an opportunity to go and take a look at the sort of a science of soil called black gold.
uh,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm a person, I love my nettles, right?
Mm.
Anyway, I love my nettle tea and stuff, good for iron, very iron rich. And I've got a bag of nettles going on, right? And I was like, okay, right, I'm going to clear this and clear that. And it was when it came up, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I really like to, you know, for some people, it's the, they're not plant people. And soil is, you buy your soil, you can buy this type of soil and everything seems to grow really well. And then you might put it in another soil and feel like it's not, it's not got life in this soil.
Yeah.
And I remember somebody doing some garden work for me, putting down garlic and things like that, and seeds, and the birds just came along. Yeah. And everyone just came along and they didn't survive, right? So I was like, and I thought about, and I also looked at the quality of the soil. I didn't know much about the soil. And I think people don't know where to start. I think it might be, where do people start when it comes to getting, to grips with the soil that they have on the land around them currently?
Okay. So it depends what you're growing, because different plants need different types of soils depending on the pH level. So most vegetables and fruits, they have neutral pH level, so it's 7, neutral 7, around 6.5, 7. And house plants, they're slightly different. You get the acidic ones, or you get the alkaline ones. So it really depends on what it is that you what it is that you want to grow in the area, and whether it's in pots, or it's straight direct into the ground. So I would suggest that you begin by, getting yourself some multi-purpose peat-free compost from your local garden center. Or if this is as a startup, and that you can't go wrong with that. If you have a neutral compost, neutral pH level compost, then it's likely that everything should grow in it regardless. If you have certain plants or crops that need a little bit, more feeding, then you feed them with the according with whatever feed you have. Not whatever feed, but the appropriate feed. Sorry, we've got muddled up for words.
Yeah, throw everything on it. Yeah.
And but yeah.
And when you say feed, what would you say? What kind of feed? People think, okay, maybe people think baby bio. People think of all sorts of things. What kind of fertilizer?
I don't know any. I don't know any of that. I'm so sorry.
So I know you don't. So I'm using the spectrum right now, because everybody's in different places around it, right? And what can we use that's natural that we can use around us in our own environment that we can fertilize the soil with? Some people don't. Composting seems like, okay, it's doable, but does it? How messy is it? What's its process?
Okay, let's talk about compost very quickly then. Compost is the easiest, most sustainable way of creating soil compost. So you just take all of your house waste, natural house waste, that is, and just, if you have a compost bin, put it in a compost bin, and you will realize that your natural house waste is actually bigger. And you consume more natural house waste than anything else. I feel that anyway. Depends how much you cook. And just build up your compost layers by, even in your bins, don't just put the waste straight, just keep adding. No, make sure that you add your browns with it. So browns is your paper, because the paper. So what you want to do when you start in your compost bin or your compost heap, you want to put brown at the bottom. So that's your paper, cardboard. If you have a garden, your leaves, your dry leaves, and then you want to add your natural waste, your green waste is called, onto it. So what happens is that the brown and the green together create the right consistency for the decomposition of the materials, the natural materials, and it doesn't smell. The brown sucks up, just like tissue and paper, when it's wet, it sucks up the moisture. So it's a nice consistency, creates a nice consistency. It does when you have that 50-50 green and browns also, you don't get any flies. So it's very important that you create that sandwich layer. You go from brown, green, and you have that. And that in itself creates the right environment for all those materials to break down nicely, and it will not smell. Your compost will not smell. So that's the most easiest practical way. If you have a garden, if you have your own a compost heap, do it. If you have a garden, you don't have a compost heap, I'm telling you, it's so easy. Just get yourself some pallets, 2 or 3 pallets. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 pallets, and make yourself boxes. But just go on the internet, you'll show you. It's very, very easy. All you need is pallets, a few screws, and a drill, and and just do it yourself and build that compost. And you will never have to buy compost from the garden center again. In regards to the fertilizers, to the feeds, I'm talking about fertilizers. And like I said, I don't know what fertilizers they sell in the garden centers personally, because I always make my own. I never go out and buy it. So nettle is one of my favorites. You just put nettle in a bucket, say, a bucket, and make sure that you keep the bucket has a lid, or you put something quite weighty on top of the nettle so that it just squashes it down and it supports with the breakdown of the leaves. And so the nettle helps. The nettle is very rich in nitrogen, which is really good for lush green leaves. So your leaves like spinach, kales, cabbage, like just feed them with nettle, keep feeding them. But bearing in mind that the liquid that it makes, the feed, is quite concentrated. So you have to dilute it. So supposedly if you have I usually use, like, say, a lid. If you have a 2 liter bottle, I use the lid, one full lid, the little cup, into a 5-liter bucket of water. That's how much you need. It doesn't need to be strong. It needs to be quite light because it's very concentrated. The other feed that I use is comfrey. I love comfrey. Comfrey is very good for things like tomatoes, what else? Peppers, sweet peppers, chilies. That's the nightshade family, because it's good. You add fertilizer, comfrey fertilizer into your plants when they're fruiting, just to support with the fruiting stage, to give them an extra boost. And it works wonders. Or just to be on the safe side, just to have an equal fertilizer, just add the two. Add nettle and comfrey, and you'll never have, your plants will just love it. And you can just add it whenever you feel like they need a little boost. You can dilute it into a spray bottle and just spray it on their leaves, and there you go. And it's all over. It's, you have nettle all over, you have comfrey all over. That's just some of the few. Yeah.
And it sounds so vast and expansive, and it sounds very, if you like, thrilling. Yeah. And I use the word thrilling because it's like as you describe it so eloquently. So thank you. But you describe it in such a way that you can hear the journey. You can actually hear the journey of the plant.
Because I'm a visual. I am a visionary. Is that what people call me? Yeah, I'm a visionary. So when I speak, I see visions. I see pictures. So while I'm talking, I'm seeing the leaf, I'm seeing the nettle, I'm seeing the green, I'm seeing the lush.
I'm there. I'm in the garden. There. I don't know what else. I'm in the garden. We're not really here, folks. Yeah. So look, I'm just going to go to the chat and just hail up those in the chat. And if anyone wants to join in the conversation, you've got a burning question for our sister on the ways of the soil, then please do come in. I put it in the chat now, so you can come in and we will pop it up again in a little while. But yeah, don't be shy. You'll need to put your camera on, I know, and you'll need to put your mic on so I can hear and see you. But if you've got a burning question, or put it in the chat. If you've got a burning question, we'll answer questions here. Our sister Sandra will answer these questions, I'm sure. I just want to hail up those in the chat right now as well. Let's just start from. Right, so we've got Latanya Rose Healing Hands, who said hello, ladies, earlier. And so, you know, I just want to and also yummy heart Sankofa, our yummy Sankofa. So wonderful sister that we have, and of course we have love is just a verb. And give thanks for the lovely conversations as well. And we have also this evening with us, we also have, hold on, let's just see if we can get these to come on. They'll come. And so, and we also have this one here. We have Oaks Said It Wolves, yeah? So if you want to come in, don't be shy. Not many times do we have conversations about the soil, yeah? And everything is about, we've got to understand how the healing in our community works. Yeah, I know as a doula I work with birth, and for me it's, you know, there's a seed inside of that, and it's, you know, the work that I do is all about nurturing that and that child sprouting forth into a beautiful environment. And when our sister Sandra, you speak about it, it doesn't sound that different. Yeah, it's like doulaing the soil.
It is
it's like doulaing the soil. Yeah. So there is a question. So a couple of questions actually. So we have a question here. And do make sure, it says, do make sure organic matter is well rotted before adding. This is a note from Maxine, actually. Rotted before adding to plants, or it can burn them in the process of decomposing. Yeah,
I say that's more with manure. Yeah, definitely manure has to be very well rotten. But when it comes to organic matter, he will do it. The worms will come in, you know, all that micro life will come in and will, you know, it supports with the breakdown process.
Okay.
Obviously it's always good to have well rotten soil anyway, because it's just more, it's just easier. It's, you know,
it's more viable, right?
More
viable.
More black.
So we have a question here from Love is Just a Verb question. How do young people relate to the soil?
Interesting, that question. Yes, I would say young people in soil, depends on the age. When it comes to bringing young people into soil, we have to speak about seeds, right? And I say this by saying, because every seed equals to a currency that can be exchanged. In this case, enterprise, money, pound coins. So this is how I sell it to the young people. You come in, you know, come in, experience, come and make some. Who says come and make some green? You know, and we sow seeds and we sell those seeds. And I always say to them, listen, if you go to the shop, you buy yourself a packet of 200 seeds, or you come to me and buy yourself a packet of 200 seeds of, say, pumpkin, yeah, for £2, right? It's barely £2. Those 200 seeds that you purchased and you sowed, maybe let's see, 10% of them might have not germinated, but you know, you have a successful rate of 90%. So say about 190%, 190. I don't have my mouth seeds. So you have 190 successful plants that germinated, right? So now you sell those plants at a minimum, those seedlings, right? You have two choices. You said those seedlings at a minimum of £1 per seedling, right? Minimum. We can sell it at £2 if you go to the farmers market. Regardless, you paid £2 for the seeds. You pay you know, say £10 for the compost for if you're not making yourself. And you can either use, tray, you can use pots. Pots are not that expensive either. Say another like £10 for pots. So let's say £22. £22 you spent. And in return, just by selling those £1 pot seedlings, you are now making a profit of what's 90, 190 minus 225, 75, whatever.
Doing it now, right? That's why you say it again now. Now you got me on maths, right?
My son is the best at maths. When I see numbers, I see yeah. But say like, okay, 190, 180, 170, 165 profits you're making. Yeah. And if you rotate that where you can sow your seeds every month, you're doing it. So you know that every month you're gonna have seedlings, and you can do, you can do more if you want, if you have that market. But that's just one way that the young people can relate to growing foods and in the soil. Or you can also leave the plant to grow. And then if you have the space, one plant can give you up to 10 pumpkins, right? And you sell each pumpkin, depending on the size of them, minimum 3-4 pounds, up into 7-8 pounds. So if you have one plant, that's going to give you minimum, or should I say, an average of 10 pumpkins. And now you have 190 plants. Make the maths and see how many pumpkins you have. Yeah, how many pumpkins you can sell. You can sell, or you can share. So, food growing is very interesting. It's very entrepreneurial, definitely. Yeah, but it's also.
And do you think there's a lot of ways to? Because I think people think, do we have an opportunity? Sometimes you buy seeds, you do the seeds, and you might find that you grow enough for your family and stuff like that. I always get concerned that, like, I'm a person like, I might just want to do, I don't know, let's say I've got 20 seeds, right? 20 pumpkin seeds. And that, let's say 3 or 4 of them don't really germinate. So I'm like, I want to have all this pumpkin, but then I'm like, I'm going to go pumpkin. I personally am going to go pumpkin mad in my house for about a week, right, with these pumpkins once they grow. But I'm like, right, it's going to be pumpkin this, pumpkin for breakfast, pumpkin for lunch.
Yeah, why not?
So I go pumpkin crazy this week. Now, next week it be aubergines, I don't know, right? Yeah. But I think, when I look at my children, I think about, growing and stuff like that. And like you're talking about entrepreneurial skills and the importance of that. And I think it would be nice to, engage the, more children into that kind of conversation around the entrepreneurial spirit of growing it. And where do you think young people could start, especially if they're young?
Well,
where do you think they can, where do you think they could, in the world of selling them?
Yeah.
Because it's not like they can really sell it to their peers, depending on their peer group, per se. And it might be families, perhaps. But I think if you're trying to reach, a wider demographic of young people, let's say you've got teenagers now who are on how how young people are. They're growing, they're growing, they're building their muscle, they're building their body. Some of them choosing veganism, choosing this kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, know how they could, if you like, raise awareness for themselves inside of, the entrepreneurial spirit of growing food. Yeah. What that looks like. What does that look like for a young person who's, say, 16, who is going on a vegan journey, wants to grow food? What does that look like for them?
Yeah. So there's a difference between growing the food, for me anyway, growing food and cooking the food that you grow, right? I'm a grower, but when it comes to cooking the food, I prefer raw. It's just easy, So looking at the nutrients, I mean, do you know what? To be honest with you, Sister Matt, like looking at the magic that the food that you grow in the soil has, and compare that to you as a human being, as a electromagnetic being, it's so vast. There's so much. There's so many ways that you can dress it to make it appealable to whatever age you want it. So I'll give you an example then. To a 16-year-old, I will sell it. They will sell it. Okay, come and grow what you want to eat. Grow what you want to eat, and begin exploring that. Begin exploring the flavors, because I tell you something, the food that you grow, the flavors are completely different than what you buy in a supermarket. You don't eat, it's not, it's completely, there are flavors in what you grow, not only the flavors, but your intentions. So this is more than just food growing, what we're doing here. We're not just growing food or cultivating food to eat. We're growing food to share. We're growing food to feed our cells so that we can access those superpowers that perhaps are a little bit dormant because they've been what's the word? They've been put to sleep by the other foods that we eat. So how would I answer the question as a 16-year-old? How would I invoke a 16-year-old or a young person to come to join the magic of food growing? Encourage them to learn about, do you know what? Food growing is a personal thing. It's something, it has to speak to you. And when it speaks to you, because it has so many different ways that you can go, and how many different ways, it has many different ways that you can make something that's personal to you, and something that you can market that perhaps that's personal to you, basically. So it's an individual journey, but I promote food growing to young people through that entrepreneurial aspect. Come and grow what you want and sell it, or make a music video. It depends. Like my son, so he's not 16, he's 12, but he grew up growing foods. And right now is the last thing that he wants to do is grow food. He's into computers, as we know. Most children of his age are. But, however, he's also into filming. So, okay, fine. You don't have to grow the food, but if you make the videos of what it is in your eyes, how you see this in your eyes, then okay, we can discuss about you being the video person, the video man, and you get paid for it. That's an entrepreneurial aspect. And
yes,
yeah,
yes.
and that's,
There's an opening inside
yeah,
of that for him.
exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was looking at it because a lot of young people, I think we're quite lucky, when we're changing our diet, we've got quite a strong community of people who are doing it at the same time, or have already done it. There's a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
But with young people, where there's a gap, maybe a gap in, we're older, they're younger, where are their sources for good health? Where are their sources to grow food and soil sister? Or as soil teens, ladies, soil teens now.
We're in conversation.
We're developing the business as we're on the online.
I hear you, because we're actually in conversations as well. And I've spoken to it's something that I always talk to Brother Davis from Manhood Academy constantly, because I want the youths to come, not only for them to learn, but also for them to be in nature and for them to get practical within nature. So even woodwork, the things that. All right, so let me just break this down. There's two aspects of growing, right? There's the feminine aspect and there's the masculine aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Both, right? Regardless of what the age group, we need both to have that
balance, for supreme balance. Absolutely.
Right. So the brothers basically come in, say supposedly like we're in the village, as we are, as we do, a new village that we're creating. The brothers come in, and the brothers chop up the trees and they work the soil. They take all the stumps out. They make sure they basically they clear
turn the soil. They're the ones who turn the soil and cultivate the soil. And we as women, we lay the seed.
Right, that's it. That's where I'm going. But between that, while they're doing that, we are looking after the brothers. We are looking after them, making sure that they're having the drinks,
absolutely,
they're eating, because it's so important when you're working the land to do all of that.
Yeah,
right?
and it is about looking after each other.
And,
What it's when you're dealing with it from a village perspective, you're looking at it from it's cyclical. Yeah,
yes,
you're seeing that in the men tilling the soil, cultivating the soil for us to grow and put the
yes,
seeds there, but also taking care, watering and feeding them, and the
yes,
food, watering and feeding and sustaining us.
exactly,
So
exactly.
it becomes a cycle, a constant
Yeah,
cycle
absolutely.
of care and nurturing and feeding and
Yeah.
cultivating. So it's
Sure.
absolutely beautiful. Sounds lovely, right?
It is. And
Utopian, even, right?
absolutely. And I'm saying this, and this is nothing to do with strength. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's the balance. Because I'm telling you, from experience, it may take a woman. Again, this is nothing to do. It is and it's not. It may take a woman 2 hours to cultivate an area that would take a man 20 minutes. And not only that, it's important because we build relationships when we're on the
Mm.
land, which are much different than the relationships that we build outside the land. Because anyone that comes to the land for a purpose, to be at peace, to be connected. So you're already a foot in, right? To have those meaningful conversations and getting to know one another. So the land also gives you the opportunity to do that. And it's a safe space for supposedly the brothers to have their time together, and have their connection. A safe space for the sisters to have their time together, and a safe space for the children to explore as well. So, you know, it
It's a
yeah,
win-win all
it's a
round.
it's a
It's a
win-win.
win-win.
Yeah.
And that's lovely. I think, and it is refreshing to hear the beauty of it. We live in such a concrete jungle and dealing with all the kind of woes of the world. Then, yeah, and those dynamics. So it's that state of peace. So as we get older, we naturally want it. We all, at the end of the day, yeah, we can achieve this, achieve that, produce this, produce that, create this, brand that. And still at the end of the day, we all want the one thing, peace.
Absolutely in love.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so it's kind of like getting your piece early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting
Yes.
getting
Yes.
a piece of your piece early, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And
And so
yeah.
so I really get it. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of people here. We have Tikar and Vasa 7, who says it's a beautiful conversation.
Sure.
MF Tahaka Sol, who says that they're glad that they stumbled upon this
Oh,
enriching and
thanks.
enlightening conversations. That's beautiful. We have a couple questions in the chat as well. So let me get a question here. And the question, let me just pull it up. The question is, do you save seeds from produce that you buy and then plant, i.e. pumpkins?
Only if it's organic. I don't. I do save my seeds. I always advise people to save their seeds, but buy it from an organic certified um, someone. Got lost for words again. And then you know that your babies after that they come from a good mother. But if you buy it from
Oh, I love the way you put that. They come from a good mother. Oh, I love it.
because it comes
I love it.
from
I love it. I love it. I love it. I've got a question here for love is just a verb. What
uh,
stops one seed from germinating and another sprouting?
that's
They are in the same ground, same sunlight. Very good question.
it's just
Keep
like
the
a baby.
questions coming, family. Keep the questions coming in.
It's just like a
Brilliant.
baby. Yeah, it's just like a baby. It's just some seeds may be dormant, other seeds may not fully germinated inside, because remember the seed has a outer layer. So just like your inside, the shell hides the what do we call it? Um, ah, the what do you call it? Then? The embryo. That's it. The
Right?
shell has the embryo, and the embryo
Mhm.
might not be fully developed. Hence why it didn't germinate. So yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so, is there anything that we can do to you know, I'm not saying that we have to kind of like become mad scientists here, but can we, it's like,
Thank you,
all right, if
sister.
we look at pregnancy, we'll say to a woman, you know, you might say, okay, you know, it's like supporting a woman not to have a miscarriage then.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you imagine, it's like, how can we support this seed before it becomes a seedling? Are there any things that we can do to engage the seed?
Sure. So I like that. Engage the seed. So there, when you're planting, when you're sowing your seeds, all right, this is a really cool story. Right. So a seed is like is obviously a baby, yeah, and it's an embryo. So like say a fetus, an embryo, and the embryo itself has all of the nutrients that it needs inside of it. Hence why we eat seeds. We eat sunflower seeds, even because that's the primary source of nutrients that you're intaking. So the embryo has all the nutrients. So what we want to do is plant that embryo into a light bed, a light soil. So a soil that is not rich in nutrients because the embryo already has all the nutrients inside itself. So you'd want to you have to have a different mixture. I use a different mixture when it comes to my seed sowing to support with the germination process. And it's usually a mixture. Say if you have your multi-purpose peat-free compost, that you can do all sorts. You can sow seeds, you can do borders, you can do pots, you can do whatever. Just add a few handfuls of either perlite, which is you can get that anywhere, which is a volcanic rocks, very light volcanic rocks, or sand, which does exactly the same thing. And what that does, um, it allows drainage first and foremost. So it allows the water to go through, so it doesn't soak up the seeds and rot the seed. And also it breaks down all those nutrients that you have in a compost that may be too rich for the embryo. And that's one of that's the main thing that I do with my seeds, because the seed compost is separate from potting compost, potting on compost, right? If you sow your seeds in rich nutrient rich compost, should I say, your babies are going to grow like hungry babies, right? And then what happens is they're going to want rich feeding all the time. They're going to want rich soil. And when they don't get rich soil and rich feeding and the nutrients that they want, they will not produce the fruits. Or you may get, like, say, pumpkins, little tiny pumpkins, or the fruits will not develop. So that's why it's important to make sure that when you sow your seeds, you sow it with the correct sowing compost. But of course, you can use your peat-free multi-purpose compost as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Yeah. And so, okay, that's good. And so I have a question around light.
Okay, let's talk about light.
Because we know in this country, the weather is so changeable. Yeah. And you might get like 1 week, you'll get a heat wave, and then like a couple of days ago it was really nice, and today you had hailstones, and
Yeah, it was
some places were snowing today. It's
yeah.
that crazy. And I get concerned about my plants. Like I might put something outside, and then I have to be like, oh, if I'm not home, like I'm not home for that plant or something like that. Like, the weather's just completely. I feel often like, is she damaged? Is she okay?
Yeah.
I'm not home. Like when it really rains on it or something like that, and it's almost like drown your plant almost, like, or it's freezing outside. I think frost is an issue. Yeah, especially in the winter times, and good light. Yeah. And I wonder, how much that bears when you're planting and you're cultivating a new seed, how much moving around is
You don't.
needed.
But you remember when you're planting, okay, when it comes to planting, they need darkness. I mean, most plants, most seed germinate under the surface.
Hmm.
I forgot to mention was leads. I find it very important to make sure that you have the right containers where you, to me, I think that's like for that is one of the most, if not the most important factor of starting up your sowing your seeds in. It's making sure that you have the right container, a long life container and lids, right? Yes. So, and yeah, water lightly, like what Max is saying, and keep the temperature steady. Absolutely, absolutely. So somewhere when it's winter time, sometimes when I sow some seeds in winter, well, you should see what I do. Really, I just put so much. I cover them completely with fleece. I have these, making sure that they're warm. So they need warmth, right? Not so much light, but warmth, the right temperature. And yeah, so the lid helps with that. So if you have a good propagator or electric propagator, that would help. But
And
I
if
don't.
you ever wanted to really go hard on growing, do you think you can need to, like, let's say you're starting now, because this is springtime now. And what would be good if people are starting right now? What would be good to plant right now?
You can plant.
In
Yeah.
everything is good to start now.
Some
Yeah,
people want everything now. Depends on it. Just depends.
yeah, because that's what I would do. I'd naturally, like, okay, spring's here. I'd want to plant everything. I get kind of like really in the zone in spring.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to kind of get a sense of, okay, when you want to have this, you want to engage your plants, yeah, in a way where factors like, let's say it's a seedling now and it's slightly, it's shooting up a little bit, but you've got frost, you've got this, you've got
Yeah.
that. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, how can you protect your plants
Well,
more, I
green,
guess is the question.
yeah, when it comes to April frost. Yeah, that's when, yeah, you may lose if you haven't protected your plants. So if you have a polytunnel or greenhouse, that's awesome. Use bubble wrap to insulate your polytunnel or your greenhouse, or use fleece. That's the most common one. You want to cover your babies with fleece, lots of it.
Fleece.
Yeah, fleece, horticultural fleece. It's just, yeah.
So what
Or
if you're like using a small space? A lot of people have gardens, so a lot of people don't have gardens. So they're starting for the first time. They want to maybe they've got their seedlings, like you say, in April frost. Yeah. How can they protect their seedlings I suppose, in a small container if they're only growing as they are at this stage?
yeah, still either fleece, still, make sure that you put your babies in your seeds in the area and cover them with fleece, or bring them in if they're in trays, and if you have the space indoors, bring them in. My bathroom turns into a propagation into the birth room. Come April, you have to step over to get into the bath. Trays
Hold
everywhere.
on now.
Yeah, bring them in, put them in the windowsill. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
have space, then bring them in. If you don't have the space inside, then create a zone outside, but make sure that you can maybe make yourself a cold frame, which is pretty easy, or buy yourself one of those big massive containers from IKEA, and make sure that you cover it up nicely with fleece. So yeah, so that's what I do.
Okay, lovely. So just acknowledging those in the chat. Our sister here, you know her, and you're actually going to be at the retreat this year. Is that right?
And
Oh, we're going to be at the retreat together. How fabulous!
that's why I went like that
Excellent.
earlier. I did see it coming up. I'm like, hi, Sita. Yes, I am. I'm still
So
looking
rise
forward
up,
to
Sister
this week.
Sandra. So this is from the Nagu dream team, Auntie Angie.
Hi,
So
Auntie.
thank you so, and you will be at the storytelling festival this year. If you don't know about the storytelling festival, there will be more information coming up about that. So keep an eye out for that one. I will be there this year as well, so I will be there doing a workshop this year like I did last year. So yes, I'll be you in person, sis. Big
Yeah.
hugs now. It's on. Big hug. We're going to be talking plants and babies. That's all we're going to be talking, plants and
Absolutely.
babies.
I'll be doing a workshop there as well about planting.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. So I'm going to be speaking to the team about, I'm going to say it now. Yeah. Please make sure that they don't clash. Yeah.
Oh
Please
yeah.
don't make me clash. Okay. I want to be there at her one. All right. I'm just letting you know now, dream team. Just letting you know. Just putting it out there. So, yeah, I just think, these are really warm and rich conversations. And I think, a lot of people don't understand the power of it and the therapy. And, we talked about, obviously this is quarantine convos. And we kept the conversation going because, quarantine is happening somewhere for someone, right? And so, we also don't know what's going to look like going forward in terms of, come December months as they do, right? So the new report has come out about certain things that will come up later another time. But it means that, I remember people feeling very, if you like, smothered by the circumstance, feeling, ostracized, depending on what their thoughts and feelings were at the time, and people feeling isolated, and people almost feeling almost like in a prison setting. People are taking pictures of, plants coming out of the concrete when they, when everybody had to sort of go later. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so did you find that, there was an increase or, an increased interest during that time for people around you, in terms of the work that you were doing? Did you find that that was a time that, really kind of brought people into that conversation? There's also the conversation for people's emotional and mental well-being and how it supports that. So yeah, let's dive in a little bit with that.
Yeah. Thank you for that's a very good question. Yes, definitely. I tell you what, my food growing increased a lot more. So I was growing to give away food, which was really good for me because the increase of biodiversity, there was an increase on biodiversity as well, which is necessary when you're growing food, when you're out in nature. When you're growing your food, you need the bees, you need the whole balance to make sure that
the economy.
Yeah,
The ecosystem.
the ecosystem. So the ecosystem, when it just increased, it was beautiful, which meant that we had a lot of food to share. So yeah, definitely that. So there was that aspect that increased. The aspect of people wanted to know more about food, and how to grow food and how to. They couldn't really get involved because it was still locked down, but definitely people contacted me, and me also sharing the foods with them, and it got me more into looking at the nutritional aspects of the food. One of my mentor, I don't know if my mentor and sister, who actually is partly also the reason why I became a horticulturist, Sister Kandaki. She's a herbalist, and we've been working together for many years. And so, her teachings also supported me with the development of on how to market what I was doing. And that in itself created more attention to the work that was being done around food growing. And it was nice and nourishing to have those conversations with the community about how to grow carrots, and more carrots are good for how, especially the herbs as well. And like I said, food growing sparkles conversations not only about food, but especially mental holistic well-being, or mental well-being, because being in nature really supports that. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. Again, I've got a habit of going off, like I said, I see things. So as I'm talking, I'm seeing, when I was
So
growing.
how did you feel that
Yeah,
I mean, for anyone who's kind of starting out or, in terms of like the emotional benefits, what do you think the emotional benefits to this work have been for you
yeah.
and maybe for others?
Okay, okay. So it's also important to say that I began my journey into food growing because of my emotional well-being, because I had I was going through a traumatic time in my life, and being in nature and growing food helped me to reestablish myself and create an inner balance within myself. And um, when I recognize that food is more than what we just think it is, and what it does inside of me when I eat the food that I grow, and the healing that I feel within myself, and the access that it gives me to my own personal superpowers, and the access that it gives me to also be able to relate to others, and to be sympathetic to other situations and others' journeys. I feel that's what people come. That's what I see, that people come into this setting for a piece of peace, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, for someone to listen to them, and sometimes just to be quiet. I mean, when I was going through my traumatic times, all I did was go into the allotment and grow foods. I didn't want to speak to nobody. I took joy just looking at a butterfly, or I took joy looking at a bee drinking water, and putting the bowl out there and creating little steps for them to drink water.
Yeah,
You know,
I love to play with insects. I have to say, I don't really like them in the house, but I do like to play with insects outside of the
outside,
house.
exactly. And yeah, and that's it. And also the herbs. I have to go back. I haven't mentioned the herbs. The importance of growing herbs, holistic herbs that support your complete well-being. I mean, Sister Matt, and to all that who are watching, there's a complete different world in nature that, unless
Mm.
you are in it, you're missing out big time. Complete. There's Nature is like a complete book of holistic living. It gives you all of the answers inside and out of
Mm.
you. Yeah.
Love that. I love that. So we've got a couple of points here. Someone said that you can use, Tanya Lloyd says you can cover your plants, cover them up with burlap.
Okay.
Mm. I'm gonna look that up. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for that. I'm a woman who I'm always a student as well as a teacher. Yeah, I'm that too. And then we have Maxans. You can start seeds indoors with a seed tray with holes for drainage away from radiators.
Yeah,
Need light and airflow. Don't let them dry out. I love
that's
this.
right. Yeah. Yeah,
These are
and
tips for
that's,
me.
yeah, just make sure um that you don't keep them. It's okay to be warm, but not like on top of the radiator, and just in the
Yeah.
middle of the radiator, because if you dry them up, so you have yeah. So what Max said is correct. I just see
Mm.
lad. Okay, because yeah, if you can afford that, then yeah, definitely, and
Okay.
because it does suck up any moisture as well.
Excellent. Well, look, and we're coming to a close.
Are
Yeah,
we
we
like?
are. We are. Yeah, it's coming up to 8:30, and I know
Oh,
that you had to go. I know that. So, and so I do want to thank you for this. And
yeah,
by all means, I know that we will meet in the summer, and
yes,
so we'll have further conversations. I'd love to invite you back again at a
yes.
different point. But I do want you, just before we close, you talk about the Soil Sisters. So just tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about some of the projects you're up to right now, and then I'll give out your details.
Okay, great. I would. So we have a program called Women Leading with the Land, which focus on teaching land skills to women, to indigenous women of Africa and Caribbean. And I thought that was very important because I saw that there was a disconnect between food growing and the sisters. And also because for me, I wanted to learn from the sisters. And the sisters have such a beautiful energy. I wanted to harvest some of that, and I wanted to give something back to my sisters and just share information from each other, just learn from each other. Hey.
Neanderthals and Kofa.
and
Sisters.
Yeah, Sister Nehanda was the first sister that I spoke to about this project. I got in touch with Sister and I said, right, I was doing the food growing with the kids. I said, Sister, I'm going through this for this stage in my life and blah blah, and I need to be around sisters. And I feel that I should do something to invite the sisters to the land. And Sister Nehanda was like, yeah, okay, yeah, I see where you're going with that. I see. And yeah, it happened. So you're still to come. You still haven't come. So the program starts in April the 30th, and it's a 6-week program. So we do it seasonal every 6 weeks. And obviously the site is open for the sisters to come in the volunteer days as well. I have the Love Garden, community Love Garden. So volunteer sessions there for families and kids and schools. Wednesdays I do it from 11 to 1, and on the first Sunday of every month from 12 to 2. And we usually during the summer and the spring we have workshops there. Like last year we had Shola from our brother Shola to come in, and he did a fabulous storytelling workshop. We have mini bug or mini monster hunt workshops. We have seed sowing workshops. We have flower pressing workshops, making nature arts and craft workshops. So all of that is coming up in the summer throughout the months of from beginning in May and to August. And on the land, just look into the website because I'm still designing the workshops that I'm doing for the sisters on the land. But we will have workshops. There's around how to create your own holistic edible garden. What else? What other programs? Beneath the Surface, where I'll be talking about soil and what soil means in relation to our bodies as electromagnetic beings and how connected we are. And yeah, that's really cool.
That's exciting.
And I have a taster day coming up on the 17th of April at our site, Women Leading with the Land. And this is to invite women, our sisters, to come in, to get a feeling for the land, and then I'll be able to share with them all the workshops and programs that we have leading up to summer. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, look, just again, if you didn't see it, it's Go Grow with Love, yeah, and Instagram, that is, yeah, and it's Go Grow .org.uk, and you've got a hyphen in there, yeah. So it's www.go-grow.org.uk. All right. But yeah, it was absolutely lovely to have you here. It would be lovely to have you back at another time, and I can keep you posted on my own journey. I'm sure we'll speak anyway. I feel sisterhood coming. I feel kindred in the space here. so just know that there's I've got a couple of people here. There's noted.
Yeah, definitely.
There's some beautiful human beings on tonight. Yeah, you got the queens in the building now.
Oh man, this is absolutely, and I'm so grateful for the Queen sisters that have come and joined the journey. I put the call out there, and I'm just still quite overwhelmed by the amount of response that I received, especially from the sisters. It's been a journey, and I look forward to continuing this journey and learning from you all, because that's what we're here to do.
Well, it's each one teach one. It's each one teach one. It's like the journey of humility is never ending. Exactly. And one of the things you learn about, it doesn't matter how much ego you have, plants give you humility.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. They give you humility.
Absolutely.
And it keeps you in check. It keeps you in check. It lets you know where. It's almost like a barometer. It lets you know where you are, even if you think you're here.
Exactly.
And if you allow it to kind of do that to you, yeah, like when I know my plants are growing, I'm like, okay, and then I'll sort of, I'm like, oh yeah, and then I will see where it reverberates in other areas of my life. But let's say, you know, the weather got weather worn or something like that. I'll be like, okay, you know what am I not taking care of? Yeah, let my
Yeah,
plants
absolutely. And
be the guide now.
yeah, it's very true. And there's one formula. I just want to share this with you because before I go, one formula that I obey and I say with great, I'm disciplined by completely. It's the wheel of seasons. It's what happens to the garden each season it reflects to what's happening to you in your each season, and also what happens to the garden season also reflects the periods of the stage of life that you are at. And that's definitely another show that we have to do because I have ample to
Listen,
share.
we've got lots to talk about because now you're getting into what time of the year you're born now.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
I'm asking, now what plant represents me?
Yes.
What
Eco-fairy,
plant
definitely.
represents
Yes.
the time-space continuum that I was born? I'm going in now. I'm going in.
I know who I am, Dandelion. What's yours?
I don't know. I was born in October. Yeah, so I'm an October. And the thing is, I'm very seasonal anyway. So I'm very, you know, when it comes to like, as soon as it hits September, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm naturally hibernating. I'm spring and summer, and then, you know, I'm tilling the soil of my life, and then I'm coming back out, with my fruits, and then I'm back in again. And I've been doing that. I've been like that for nearly 20 years, but not really looking at it. You know, I was like that maybe before that, quite seasonal, because October was always cold when I was little and all this kind of thing. I was like, oh gosh, this is unfun. So, okay. But you know, you make it work. And and for me, it's like, oh, you know, I look at it like, what, you know, I got a little rose bush for Mother's Day on Sunday, and I was like, oh, okay, you know what, and you know, the leaves are kind of coming off a little, you know, they're lovely to start with, and then you need to go, you know, quite hard on them to maintain them. And I was like, okay, you know what, I'm looking at them, they're beautiful now, but they're, you know, wilting away, and you know, it's kind of like, okay, you know, and then I'll start looking at, okay, you know, what needs to be tilled over here, what needs to be cultivated over here, what Cat the Star, and and so, you know, what kind of, you know, so those kinds of things kind of show up for me in this kind of conversation. So, you know, and I'm sure we'll have a part two. And you know, I just want to give thanks for those, you know, all the hail outs and love in the chat and the conversations. You know, it's going to be very rich conversation come after summer. I think you should definitely come on after we've done the festival. We'll look at it again. And we'd have a deeper conversation from then anyway. We would have met in the person at least by then. So, but yeah, I just want to thank you so much, sis. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. And it's very enriching. And I look forward to, you know, having another conversation with you for sure. I'm going to put you backstage briefly and wrap up, and then we'll complete. All right. But thank you so much again. Lots of love. Give thanks, sis. Oh, that was lovely. Yeah, that was like, you know, when you're eating comfort food, that was comfort food. Yeah. Yeah, I eat comfort food too. I'm human. And so I just want to thank you all so much for a lovely evening. Thank you all on the chat. I know that there was a beautiful hail out, Sister Nihanta. Thank you, sis. I appreciate that. Appreciate that. And so yeah, I just want to thank you so much. You know, we've had a really lovely show, and I'll be back again in April. I won't be back next week, but I'll be back again in April. I did, as I promised that I would, you know, make up for not being here. So I am, and I have, I'm complete. So that's done. But I'll come back to you again in April. We'll be planning some more shows and some more guests, and I'm planning an interesting panel at some point soon with males. So I will get back to you on those things. We've got lots of things coming up. The festival is going to be coming up. Mahi EK is going to be coming up. So these are lovely things that we can speak to you about. But as always, as we complete, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, make sure that that we're in a place of power, and make sure that we've learned from the dynamics, the week's events, and I say week meaning weakness, but all the events of that week, let's just engage in some brighter and powerful futures, because there's a lot of exciting things coming up in our community. Support each other, love each other, take care of each other, and remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got kush.
Quarantine Convos. Enjoy weekly discussions with people from around the world, assisting us in dealing with this normal, mentally, spiritually, and physically. We feature nutritionists, psychologists, therapists, personal trainers, home educators, legal experts, and more, bringing you all the information and inspiration you need. Check out Quarantine Convos every Thursday from 7 p.m. live on Got Kush TV.